Pat, was the uncertainty surrounding Chris Bosh and his future an impediment to recruiting free agents here?
No, it's not an impediment. It's just something that has to run its course, you know. We went through it with Alonzo Mourning, so we know at that time, you know, what happened with the team, and we're going through it right now with Chris. And so it's a factor that we have to weigh on a regular basis, but because it's an unknown to some extent. It will work itself out, but it does right now stymie us from doing certain things, and instead of knowing wholeheartedly that, you know, he's going to be at the 4 spot next year.
Pat, if you'd be kind enough just to go over each one of the 3s and 4s he had, what you liked about each of them, and Babbitt and James Johnson, Derek Williams, and then your 5 and Willie Reed.
You want me to talk about all 17 players or just?
Well, those 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. We some of the first conversations we had, with Derek Williams' agent, James Johnson's, agent. We always liked Luke, Babbitt, from years past, and we just didn't think he was in sort of maybe the right situation. But last year we felt that he played extremely well in New Orleans, and Willie Reed, we knew. We had him. We thought he had a good year last year with Brooklyn, and so, filling positions in right now with a lot of new players, and of course with Wayne Ellington, having him come in as a player that's personally that we know he can shoot the ball, and we felt very good about being able to go after these players, and especially getting them on 1-year contracts, and at the same time. Having a very young athletic team, and then still being in the game next summer.
And the skill set specifically with Williams, obviously you're getting defense with Williams and James Johnson. What appealed to your skill set?
Well, this new word, from a skill set standpoint, James Johnson is a defender. He's 6'9". He's very athletic, very long. I've seen him have great games. I mean, truly great games. He started for Toronto. A number of games before he rolled his ankle over, and then the young kid from UCLA came in and took a lot of his minutes. But I think with consistent minutes and, with a specific role as a sort of a Swiss Army knife type of guy, he's 6'9" and guard guys. He can really defend. And I think if you're looking to beat anybody in the East, then you have to look at how you're going to be defending certain players that can make the difference. Derek, Williams, from that standpoint, Derek Williams is an elite athlete above and beyond, from an athletic standpoint. And we think we can raise his 30%, three-point shooting to maybe 37 or 38. We feel like we can do that we can improve that. We can improve that with James. Luke already has that ability to make threes. Ellington has the ability to make threes. Willie is just an athletic young guy inside who can score, and we need to have a backup center, and so it was a good opportunity for us. So all of them we feel like they will fit in, especially the way that Coach wants to play.
Pat, with regard to Tyler Johnson, did you guys try to get out in front of that and go for a more balanced contract? And
yes.
If so, why did that not come together?
Impeccable with your word. I used that earlier, didn't I? Tyler's a good kid, and so when he signed his offer sheet or agreed to an offer sheet with the Brooklyn, and obviously between the 1st of July and 7th, you can talk to him about making him an offer, our kind of offer, which would be underneath that offer sheet for 4 years would be more normal, and or we could have made him a better one if we knew Dwayne wasn't going to be here, and they refused, and he said he wanted to keep his word, with Brooklyn, and so. I honor that. I get it. He wasn't going to agree to something and then come back to us and do something and say, well, it's off. The kid's a great kid, and he's got great moral values. So sometimes in this sport, you don't. He kept his word, and we matched it.
When Dwayne decided to go, how much did it kind of change, or in what ways did it change the vision you guys had for building out the rest of the team moving forward?
Well, let's look at it from a reality standpoint. If we didn't do anything, and we just decided to sign everybody back and not do anything, and just sign Hassan and Dwayne, and we'd have Goran and Dwayne, and we'd have Hassan. And Lou, there's no way when Lou told us that he got $76 million or $72 million that that was, that train just left the station. And when Joe got $22 million, that train left the station. And so if we did nothing and just signed, then that's what we would have this year, plus our young guys. And then we would have a room, exception. You must. I think it's almost a fiduciary responsibility on my part to keep us in the game of being able to have an audience with a Kevin Durant. I think it was a long shot for us, especially after CB went down. And so from that standpoint, I'll never ever not take an audience with a free agent who calls and says we'd like to talk to you, or vice versa. And I think so when you're in that position, you have to do it. That didn't slow us down, but from the standpoint of where we are, as a team, I feel good about what happened after the aftermath of Dwayne leaving.
Pat, you lost your two starting forwards from last year's playoff team. Was there any point where you either asked Lou or Joe Johnson to sort of remain on hold? And from someone who appreciates veteran leadership, how much does it hurt the team to see those two guys walk?
Lou was in. He was in. He wanted to stay here. He understood our dilemma, the fact that he didn't have bird rights and he was just a 2-year guy. Contributed a little bit to our overall thinking, but still, there wasn't going to be enough for everybody. Now, if a player decided to take some kind of an exception, then he gets his bird rights, and then next year you can be rewarded, and that's a whole other kind of player in the thought process. But he was in until his agent called and said, 72 is a lot. And I'm happy for him. He's 31. He's going to go out to, I think, a great franchise. They're going to use him, I think, in the capacity of being a player, a producer, and also an educator of the young guys. And I think Joe was a long shot with us, always. When we got Joe, we were very fortunate to get him because he wanted to come to Miami and play here because he had an opportunity to be in the playoffs and play. And so he did have an opportunity to get to two seventh games, and he got a great offer too. And once he got the offer, then both of them were gone. So we lost, Lou, and we lost, Joe. But I think the person that is going to benefit the most from this, and it's time to step up, is Justice Winslow. He's capable of starting in this league, and that is right now who we have slotted in there, and that is who I feel very comfortable with.
Pat, obviously, big roster makeover, but do you still feel this is a team that can contend for a playoff spot and should be in the playoffs next year?
When you look around the Eastern Conference and you take a look at, who helped themselves and who didn't help themselves, you always, Cleveland is obviously, the class of the conference. Horford, going from Atlanta, to Boston, it really, I think that helps them. They lose Sullinger. There's the possibility they might do something that can make them better. I don't know about, with New York, with Derrick Rose, going to New York, but with Joakim Noah, I think that's a great move for them to have those two players with Carmelo and with Porzingis. I think, that could be a team, that could be different. I don't know how Atlanta's going to be with Howard now, and he's a different kind of center than Horford is. So I don't think there's any doubt that we can compete for a playoff spot. From that standpoint, you have to figure out and see who in the East, really has what it takes to sort of be competitive. It takes 20 or 30 games, and you get a pretty good idea about where you are. But our plan is to always compete for a playoff spot, and I think we can do that. I don't think there's any doubt we can do it.
Pat, the run-up to 2010 I mean, it was obviously different. You guys planned a couple of years for it and got everything set up a certain way. But it obviously, it was invigorating, it seemed, for you, for Mickey, for the franchise, really, on a lot of levels. Are you already thinking about the possibility of a similar reinvigoration happening over the next 12 months because just because of the abilities you might have with the money that you should have next summer?
Well, there's no guarantee that whatever money you can create next summer in the free agent market is going to bring in somebody. I think Kevin Durant is a pretty good example of a man who had an opportunity to make a choice, which is what you do in free agency, and he was true to what his criteria were. His main criteria was, if I go, I want to go to a team where I can win immediately. And he lived up to that. And as hard as it was for him to move probably away from OKC, which is a formidable team, I read that Andre Iguodala said the other day that they were a championship team. And to make the change and go to Golden State, that's his choice. That's what free agency is about. And that's what happened with Chris, and that's what happened with LeBron. And that's what happened with Kevin. And I think you're going to probably see more and more of the superstars that might be with franchises for years, 4 or 5 years, and they're banging their head against the wall, and they get an opportunity to go somewhere where they think they can win now. I think you're going to see that happen more often. So as far as we're concerned, I'm always looking, for that opportunity. I blow somebody's mic out here. And that's what we'll do again next year. Yeah, Tim, we'll take a look at it. But there's no guarantee. You sit down and talk with them, and then they're going to take a look at your roster, and they're going to take a look at everything, and they're going to talk to you about your future and your draft picks and everything. I can tell you a funny story about, maybe I shouldn't, but I can tell you a funny story about 2010. When we took the three of them in, we had $49.5 million. So we had $16.5 for each guy, which was the max deal. So you got it. You got it all. You got it all. We got it all. We got it for you. And they said, well, who do we have left? I said, we got Mario as a starting point guard, and we got Joel as your center. That's it. We got 5 guys. Well, we'd like to get Mike Miller. How can we get Mike Miller? I said, I can't get you Mike Miller. We can't get him. I don't have the money. Otherwise, I can't give you Mike Miller. And so we traded Michael Beasley to be able to get the money, but they had to go down to 15. That was their choice, And then they said, oh, we want UD. Okay, well, I can't get UD, even though I wanted to get UD. And so it was that whole concept about bringing guys into room and on 5-year deals. This is an interesting part of the July the 9th. They all agreed to come in on 5-year deals, room only, so I didn't have to give up any assets. And then, at the 11th hour, they all wanted the 6th year. And you know what that cost me and Andy? It cost us 4 picks. And I just said to him, I said, if you want the 6th year, because I know you're going to opt out after the 4th anyhow, but you're going to want the 6th year, I don't want any of you walking into my office and say, hey, can we get any young guys around here? Can we get some draft picks around here or do whatever it is? Because they were gone. And I don't know why I told you that story, but anyways. I always get amused by it because, I just watched our last draft pick that we gave for LeBron, get traded for, I think it went to Minnesota, ended up in Philly or somewhere, and he was playing in Cleveland, and we still owed it. And I told Andy when he goes to the CBA meetings, make sure that if you ever do a sign and trade and give up a draft pick for a player, and that player leaves before the draft pick goes to that team, that it automatically is given back to you. They don't do that.
Pat, what was Chris Bosh's involvement in the negotiations with Wade, and how did he react once he found out that Wade wasn't coming back?
I don't know. He and Dwayne, I'm sure, were communicating, but I was not communicating with Chris at this time. And I'm sure that, and I know that UD was communicating with him from that standpoint. It was a little bit difficult from a logistical standpoint. Dwayne left somewhere at the end of June and was gone for a couple of weeks in Europe. And so, to be able to get an audience, with him somewhere was hard. So everything was done through the agency. Everything was done through a myriad of agents and other voice pieces and stuff. It still doesn't mean that I shouldn't have gotten in a canoe and gone over there or made more of an effort, to contact him. But there were people that were in touch with him, that were close to him. Yeah.
Perhaps you've heard word that Eric Spoelstra is about to receive an extension. Can you address, has that been done or is that impending? And your thought on Eric in a little bit of a different role, now more developmental coach than maybe the stars that could sort of lead the way before?
From a contractual standpoint, I don't know if we've made an announcement yet on it now, but we're working towards an extension that I do believe will, come to fruition, not only with him, but also with his assistant coaches. And obviously we want to put the staff together, and I do believe that Danny and Juwan and Chris will, all be part of the bench staff from that standpoint. So, and Eric has been through this before, Ira, because his first 2 years after I retired, he had contending teams, competitive teams, playoff teams, but obviously they weren't championship teams. And I thought he did, a hell of a job, at that time, in starting his coaching career with teams that were competitive and also playoff teams. So, and then he had the 4 years where I think he really earned his stripes as a head coach with 4 finals finishes and 2 world championships. And in the last couple of years, there's been some the rebuilding process, retooling to where we are today. He's got his work cut out for him. Welcome to being an NBA coach. It's not always going to be easy, and sometimes there's going to be other challenges. But I know one thing about him is that he is competitive. He's excited. He knows what the challenge is. He does love the guys that he has already developed. He's not a developmental coach. We have a developmental program in which he works very hard in improving from within. And so, his philosophy as coach, to me, is bring him to me and I'll coach him. That's it. That's the way it has to be right now. And he's very involved in the process all the time. Every single player that we talk about or sign, he gives the nod because I don't want to send him anybody that he doesn't want.
Pat, 2 quick things. Is there anyone left out in free agency that's even worth considering with the $2.9 million room exception? And also, 2 guard, I don't know how much you and Eric have talked about it yet. Do you see Ellington competing with Josh Richardson, Tyler Johnson to start there? How might that play out? So that and the $2.9 million room exception.
We have 17 players right now on our roster. 3 or 4 of them are what we would call development players. They got conditionally, guaranteed contracts, from that standpoint, with hopes that we can continue to hold on to a player if they go to the D League and if they don't make it and play at Sioux Falls. As far as the 2.9 room exception, we're going to hold on to that. It's a little jewel right now, so we don't know. I don't think we're going to use it for the rest of this summer. There isn't anybody out there right now that I want to give it to. It's something that you could use, somewhere in February or somewhere around, March. But and as far as filling out the roster, I think it's time to sort of just step back. Summer league's over with. All of the coaches need to go somewhere and just sort of relax, and as do the media. And then you do whatever you want to do, okay? But I think that's what everybody in our organization needs to do. They've been pushing it real hard since since the draft, and then we'll see what we have. And I'll be looking forward to the guys starting to come back in late August and early September. And the process never changes. Faces do. People come and go, but the process never changes, and the machine keeps rolling, down that track. And so, that's where we are basically. And I'm looking forward to it.
Pat, did you guys target Al Horford in free agency, and if so, how far did that go?
No, and it's not out of a lack of respect for him. Is that at 12:01 I came to an agreement with Hassan. I don't care if Dallas came in after us. We had Hassan. And And so once we got Hassan, I didn't want to, string along anybody else, from that standpoint. We like Al. Love Joakim Noah, and everybody that was at the top, the Rosens, the Beals, Batums, Howard, Horford, Drummond, all those guys, their deals were done. They pretty much were going to go somewhere, and Horford's going to really help Boston, I think. And but we didn't really push on that at all.
Coach, I know the commissioner spoke about super teams the other day, and maybe the smaller markets having a tougher time competing, and you have 4 superstars on a team like Golden State. And where do you stand on that? And maybe the smaller markets having a tougher time either keeping their own guys or even competing at all, and you have maybe 4 or 5 teams that actually compete for a championship.
Well, I think they thought they had a handle on it, because after the big 3 came to us in 10, the next year they went out on strike to try to get this whole thing from not happening again. And I think they had some concerns about that. However, players are going to become free agents. And, with the amount of – there's going to be another, I think, 12, maybe 15. I think the number is down to 102 or 104 for next year. Another, $12 million going into the system next year. And – so this is something that you can't stop. I mean, players want free agency. Free agency gives them an opportunity to make a change and to make a choice, and so you'll never stop that. And as far as one team being able to acquire, a player of his caliber, if you think about the sacrifices they had to make to get him, they had to let Harrison Barnes go. They had to trade Bogut. They had to let Excelli go. They almost, at one time, I thought probably might have had to waive Livingston. And so while he goes in, 3 very key components to, a championship team and a record-breaking team had to leave. So there is a price to pay if a free agent does move into your team. You better have all the space and the players, or they're not coming. And I don't think many free agents are going to leave good situations to go to a team that's been gutted, because you got to get rid of players to get them. And so I think, Adam is a very smart guy. They'll all get together. They'll try to figure this thing out. And I've always had Andy and I argue about this all the time, is I believe that there should be a franchise tag on one of your guys, that you have the ability to have a franchise tag. And what I mean by my opinion of a franchise tag, this is why they don't allow me to talk and give opinions in the collective bargaining agreement, is that a franchise player to me would be a player in which you can pay him as much money as you want, and he doesn't go against the cap or the tax. Everybody gets one player that, okay, Kevin, you get 50 or whatever, or LeBron, you get 100. I mean, whatever you want to do. I mean, somewhere along the way, there are players in this league that are worth that kind of money. So, or there's a limit on that. But if you franchise somebody, then you have ability to protect, I think, that from happening. Players won't go for that, though. I don't think they will. But anyhow, I'm going to thank all of you for coming out today, and I'll see you along the way, and I'll be following you, and I'll see you, whenever. I'll see you hopefully, after Labor Day when everybody comes back to work. So, okay. Have a great summer. Okay.